do, check out me. I'm Jules-ish Glad Eyes. Check out my new book, Pre-Flight Safety Instructions, available for free on Facebook. There's 2 volumes. The first one is What to Do If You Do Drugs Wrong. The second one is How Not to Do Drugs Wrong.
Because there's a right way and a wrong way, folks. Welcome to a special evening for Sofa City Sounds. Jules did just introduce herself. We thought we'd pop on and talk about her book and kind of give you guys a little bit more of a safe way to, if you're going to indulge, a safer way to indulge. Jules just released the book when?
On 420.
Convenient, on 420.
Nope.
So she's just made it to Ontario for her tour of the book. And surprise, it's me that gets to interview her. So, okay, let's start with how you decided to start writing this book as we smoke pot.
Yes. Well, we're medicating right now, right? So
fair.
Yes.
So, okay, so how did you start writing this?
Well, it first came about actually because, I've been part of the scene for a very long time, and I've been a part of it all throughout the country. And even though I've dabbled throughout the years, I never got into it too hardcore, but I did notice quite a few people who went down the rabbit hole who weren't actually able to get out of it. So,
and we have lost quite a few friends from it.
Oh my God, so many amazing souls, unfortunately, did not make it out to the other side like we did. So considering my nursing background and my education in neuropsychology, I decided to compile some information. So basically, the rest of our buddies, as well as our buddies' kids, don't have that steep ass learning curve that we did when we were partying and fentanyl hit the scene.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to. I've been out of the drug scene for 22 years. Mm-hmm. But it's more dangerous now than it's ever been. I think the drug scene. So I like your timing on trying to make sure that if people are going to do drugs, they do it in somewhat of a safe way. Because we can't stop everybody from doing these things. All we can do is make sure that they have guidance, right?
Agreed. So that's why the second volume of my book, which is entitled A Veteran's Guide to Raving, is...
It's awesome.
Thank you. It's all actually about educated microdosing, because in the long run, I'm not advocating drug use. But if you choose, this is essentially just a little bit smarter way on how it gives you some more knowledge on drug interactions and how to avoid certain things that can be kind of obvious.
Yep. Shelf life, foods that should or shouldn't interact with different drugs and stuff like that. Yeah. So
but there's a big emphasis on the brain, on how your brain is affected by all these different classes of drugs that you can take. But it doesn't just include street drugs. I also include things like alcohol, nicotine, and it covers things like antidepressants and antipsychotics and how they can interact with something as simple as a cigarette or a beer.
Yeah. Well, just because they're prescribed doesn't mean they're drugs. Probably one of the biggest drug dealers to date is Big Pharma.
Oh, agreed.
So like all drugs should be included, and that's good that you've got, right from your pot to your prescription. Mm-hmm. I guess
because it all interacts with your brain, right? Like if you're constantly messing with your brain and then you're going out to party, you need to know what state of mind you're going into beforehand, to the point where you're not worrying about your friend's not making it through, or you having to worry about 6-month-long hangover.
Yeah, exactly.
2 days, right? So.
Exactly. No, it's interesting. People are hit or miss. They either really love drugs and they fall down a terrible hole and never make it out, or they end up making it to the other side and they make it out clean and sober. Mm-hmm. There's very few people that have walked that fine line their entire lives. I think realistically, the only one that we can put on the table, I think, is Lemmy. He walked that fine line of drugs and alcohol his entire life, and I'm sure he got out of sorts, but it wasn't anything that was ever glorified. And I think that's why, is because there was never any glorification. But the thing is, whether you love them or you hate them, the fact is people still do drugs. People, and sometimes knowing how to do them and knowing what your body is capable of can make or break whether you live or die, you know? So, all right. Well, okay, so you covered what kind of drugs that you cover. Now, do you cover different ways to do them, like different environmental ways, like where you should be for certain types of drugs, like whether or not you should be like out in the forest for mushrooms, or
Oh, no, no.
like do you have any kind of coverage for that, or
to an extent? Yeah, I tried to cover it in a more generalized sense. So
Okay.
instead of it being there's there is a heavy emphasis on microdosing. My history is in psychology. I am a very big fan of
Yes.
People taking their mental health into their own hands, but I'm also hearing that people are not quite sure about how to do it properly,
Yes.
and taking appropriate doses, as well as there's ways on how to microdose properly, or even how to use properly to and avoid the tolerance and dependence that leads to everyday use where you're craving.
Right.
So it teaches you how to avoid that by providing an intermittent and very varied schedule.
Right.
But in no way do I advocate psilocybin use for depression, or ketamine for suicidal ideations, or amphetamines for lethargy or anything like that. But I go into detail about mental health issues that are very prevalent these days, like learned helplessness and anxiety and depression, and what is going on in your brain at the time, like whether it's your GABA that's affected, or your dopamine, or your serotonin, and then goes into detail about which drugs affect your serotonin, which drugs affect your dopamine, and all of that. So it's kind of giving you all of the building blocks on how to get the information together yourself. But at the same time, I don't want to get sued anywhere gross, so I can't full on give those dosage specific information.
Well, I think it's more or less not necessarily about how much to use. It's mainly basically how to keep yourself safe in the environment that you're in when you're using.
Oh, okay.
Right. So like for you, as opposed to like you're just saying about being sued for dosage amount, and it's not really necessarily about how much to use. It's just about how to be safe while using, I think. And I think too, it comes down to a lot of knowing what is in the drugs that you're taking. You know, even though people
That's massive.
Well, yeah, and I know people cut drugs, and sometimes you don't know what's in your drugs, what's in your Coke or whatever. But I think this is such an oxymoron saying it, but having a trusted dealer, does that sound weird?
No. It's actually a very okay. So that's something that's actually quite imperative in the raving community. Is when you go to a festival, there's actually people that are already accepted within the community, that they know that their product is not only quality but safe. Okay, and anybody other than them, you have to test, because they have not already been tried and tested for true. Right. But that is not available on a regular basis. Right. That's why if I tell anybody, if you're going to try psilocybin, don't get it off the street. There are reputable dealers available now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's stores now.
I know, the age we live in, eh?
Craziness. Like, I mean, I wish we were, I wish we were living in a society that put more money into the mental health and the care than they do into, the other things that they do when it comes to drug use. More into the people that are in the facilities as opposed to how big the facilities are. So I think that what you're doing with this book, not only is it incredible because you're educating people, and education is important. But I think that what you're doing with this book is great because you're opening people's eyes to what they are doing. And once people sometimes, once my eyes were opened and I realized what I was doing to my body and my system and stuff like that, it was difficult to stop, but it gave me that little bit of momentum to keep staying clean because I knew what was going to happen to me if I didn't. And I think by you give people that education, it gives people the opportunity to kind of double take on whether or not they want to keep using. I mean, some people don't, but lots of people change. We're prime examples that people change.
Exactly. We've been through some stuff, right? So
yeah,
but that it's waiting on like an opiate level, there's no actual medicating happening. If you look at it from an actual medical level, all it's doing is blocking your pain receptors. It's not actually stopping the source of pain. So
Right.
like when you finally quit, there's all of this fixing that you have to do, not only physically but mentally. So
Yeah.
I'm looking into more research on a third volume, and that'll be in regards to the trauma that actually usually leads to long-term use and how to
Yeah.
deal with that.
Well,
Coping mechanisms are a key factor when you're trying to quit.
right, right. And I mean, drug using in itself, most of the time, or a large portion of the time, is medicating, is because of trauma. And we never get to where the trauma is. We try to get people clean and sober, but we don't try to get them healed. Which is where I was going with putting money into the people that are in the facility instead of how big the facility is.
Yes.
We need more hands on the actual cause of the addiction, not the addiction. The addiction is just a symptom of the trauma. Mm-hmm. I think. Well, no, they've proven that. Addiction is a symptom of the trauma. And if we can fix the traumas, we can start to heal the addictions, and it goes the other way around.
There's a portion that I have covered in my book where it's when you actually think about people who are undergoing like heavy addiction, that no single human being wakes up with the intention of becoming a junkie.
No
one wants to fall into that point where they dissociate so far that they don't even know.
Nobody ever asks to be an addict. Nobody ever wakes up one day and goes, "Hey, I think I'm going to try drugs. Hey, look, a Rolls Royce."
Exactly.
But Rolls Royce just passed us by. But it's true. Like, nobody ever wakes up and goes, "Oh, I think I'm just going to become a random drug addict." Mm-hmm. Nobody ever thinks that this could happen to them. That it can't happen to me mentality. I don't know why we still have that when it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
At some time or another, whether it be the drugs or a car accident or whatever it is, right? We need to break free of that mentality, and you give people the opportunity to heal from things that mentality causes.
Yes, it's a stigma that follows hard, and like people are already shitting on themselves enough when they're so heavy into that addiction, because that's what was relieving the pain in the first place. That you need to do everything that you can to be able to get out of it. And if you're not thinking straight, you're not going to keep thinking straight. So you got to change your mind.
Right. So essentially, if you're going to do the drugs, do them in a safer environment, and she's going to give you the instructions on how to do it. Mm. So what haven't we covered? Because I'm sure there's lots of stuff to go over.
So much stuff, but I also recognize that we're short for time because this is something that we just threw together quickly, and I'm so grateful for Sofa City Sounds for getting on this
interview.
It's absolutely so grateful, but it's one of the things I do want to cover is the most important thing when it comes to any form of drug that you're taking, whether it be nicotine, alcohol, prescription, or street meds. First of all, it has to come from a reputable source, but always start with less than half. Oh, you can never take less after the fact. And
we were talking about that last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're so much better off to have a bite now, and then find out whether or not how it hits you, and then take another bite later if it's not enough, as opposed to sitting there foaming in the corner. Yeah, it's not sexy either. So seeing that the summer's coming and now we've put COVID to bed, it's actually time to party. It's all about partying responsibly. Just recognize that everything that you put in your system affects you when you're partying. So whether it's your over-the-counter medication, even ibuprofen interacts with opiates. Yeah, it turns off your breathing part of your brain. Like it turns it right down. But if you eat well, if you sleep well, and you've got excellent self-care, you'll bounce back so much faster than if you don't. So it's about everybody having a wonderful summer this year.
I can't even believe we get to do this, because you and I talked about you writing this book years ago. Because we've been
everybody
friends.
was dying, man. It was
so
like, I can't
long,
do this anymore.
So long. We've been friends so long, and we've literally
100 years.
Yeah, we both actually started the drugs knowing each other, made it through the drugs knowing each other, and made it to the other side knowing each other. And like we are two very down to earth, humble people who you would never think would ever get into drug issues. So we're kind of proof that it really can happen to anybody. It's I don't know, it's a wonderful thing that we're both here, I think. But I think that experience, thankfully, is what led us to this point. But it was nice to hear you say, I'm going to write a book, and then this was the book that you wrote. Thanks. So as a recovering addict who watches a lot of people not know how to get out of it, at least you're teaching them how to safely be in it until it's time. So, I mean, myself, I'm grateful for that. And I'm sure there's lots of other people that are grateful for that. So I highly recommend this book to parents who think their children are doing drugs, because this gives kids an opportunity, their kids, I should say, an opportunity to explore the cons right away. And from people who have been through it, a person who has been through it. So,
and there's a whole section in the first book about how to recognize if your drink's been spiked or if someone that you love that you were with has been drugged. So, and how to be able to deal with it right away. So, because unfortunately, that's a rampant concern, and when we're out partying these days, that you not even know and have no intention whatsoever, and then next thing you know, somebody else has spiked your drink. So, it's about just being cognizant about not only you, but what's going around you. So, and to see that if you are deep and thick in the middle of it, that there is light on the other end. Don't stop.
Yes, Damien, this absolutely is important information. This is why Jules is our nurse. She knows all these things. This is why she was our don't die on set yesterday.
So make sure nobody's asshole fell out. I mean, all of that hot sauce.
No, nobody. Nobody went home with their asshole in their pocket, which I mean is a little disappointing, but it is what it is. Everybody survived, and I'm grateful for that.
It's a very smooth day on my end. All I have to do is watch.
Because I think like hot sauce might slowly be becoming a drug for some people. So, but no, I mean, all jokes aside, realistically, this probably is one of the top 10s on my list that have been released this year. And as a writer, excuse me, I don't get the opportunity to read books. And I have to say that this is one that I actually was hooked on and was able to sit down and absorb, because it had interesting information, has interesting information. There's a lot of tips in there on how to keep your night eventful and safe at the same time. And that's important. If we're going to do, like, I mean, people are going to do it anyway. So, like, why not give them some kind of safety instructions, pre-flight instructions before you board the plane on how to make it a safe adventure. We don't want to lose anybody else.
Oh no, we've lost too many already, and we've got a whole new round of little entering the party scene.
Yeah,
who don't have all this experience. So it's just to make sure that they get home safe too.
Yeah, absolutely. But everybody wants their babies home.
Exactly, but you can't just preach abstinence either, because that stops working in the 30s, right?
Because when you tell a kid, don't do drugs, kids. When you tell a child, don't touch that, don't turn that, don't press that, the first thing they want to do is do all those things. Mm-hmm. So this is, I guess, a way of kind of nipping it in the bud, so to speak. Not necessarily, but, trying to get ahead of the game.
Exactly.
So
we also have a lot of people who are re-entering the scene this summer who essentially have been completely clean for 2 years now. Please be aware that if you are returning to any form of use after a long period of being clean, you have to go back down to microdosing, because you have no tolerance in your system, and that's how unfortunate amount of ODs occur.
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
Setting, right?
Well, we had a very, very good friend who I used to live with, and we both used to spend a lot of time with, who never, ever did drugs. She never did drugs. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this without crying. And one hit of ecstasy. Mm-hmm. And her 11-month-old woke up without a mom. So if you're going to do it, be safe about it, because people can't stop you from doing it, but we certainly can make sure that you know all the ins and outs of how the danger works and how the drugs work. And that's
And
important.
even if you don't do them, even if you are completely clean, recognize the signs, because then you can save somebody else's life.
Absolutely.
You know?
Anybody
Like
should read
1
this book.
hour can make all the difference in somebody's world.
Absolutely.
So it's available for free, and it's a very short read. And it's something you can just throw on the back of your phone and pull out when you actually need it in a crisis.
So why don't you give us a few tips and tricks, and then why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Okay, so the two big things you need to know about when it comes to partying, when it comes to any substance that affects your brain, is it either brings you up or it brings you down. You can tell me 500 different ways. Oh, it affects serotonin, it affects this part of your brain. It doesn't matter. It either is a neurostimulant or a neurodepressant. So if you take a neurodepressant, it's going to slow your brain down. And then if you take another neurodepressant, it's not like taking 2, it's like taking 25. So same thing happens. You take one stimulant and then you take another stimulant. Okay, so if you are doing anything like that, so I'm saying cocaine is a very similar effect on your brain as nicotine when it comes to turning everything on, making your heart race. So if you've got a bad heart already and then you throw all that on top of it, it's an exponential reaction, and that's when you have big problems. So if in any way you are choosing to do more than one item that night, okay, and alcohol is one of those things, that's a neurodepressant.
Yeah, cigarettes too.
Exactly.
Even cannabis.
Exactly, including antidepressants, Tylenol, antacids, all of that stuff needs to be included. So make sure that if you are in any way going to mix, that it's a neurodepressant and a neurostimulant, never 2 depressants, never 2 stimulants. That's when you have significant problems. So just be careful. Okay, so, and just keep an eye out for each other. I mean, no matter how safe you are, it doesn't mean that somebody else around you is being as safe. So please keep your buddies alive as well. Okay, make sure everybody gets home to their beds. You can find me on Facebook at Pre-Flight Safety Instructions. You can go ahead and download both volumes of my book. Volume 1 is Get Help. That's the first aid quick reference guide for when you're in emergency and you're waiting for the ambulance to arrive. Second one is the Veteran's Guide to Raving, and that's the neuropsychology behind educated microdosing. So let's have a wonderful, amazing experience. I'm so excited for the summer, but at the same time, let's make sure we can talk about it in the fall.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I'm really, really grateful that we got the opportunity to do this. You know, it's refreshing to know that we have people out there that give a shit from all sides of the circle, not just if you're clean, I care, or if you're not doing this drug, I care, or you know, we don't give a shit at the end of the day. We just care that you're here and you're breathing. And Adam, we love you too a lot. And Damien, we absolutely are amazed that you were okay as long as you were. Anyway, sorry, there's my ADHD getting in the way. That's unmedicated, by the way. So, yes, along with being able to find Jules on all the social media she just mentioned, you can also find her through any social media that I have. And if for any reason that you would like to get yourself in contact with her, you can get a hold of myself or her on Facebook, and I will direct you right to her if you are afraid to reach out from your side of things. And if not, she's always willing to talk if she's got a minute. So on that note, make sure that you check out her pre-flight instructions all over social media. I'm also going to add it to my website to make sure that there's some safety. Yes, Adam, we have lost a fair amount of friends over this. Absolutely.
Too many, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's make sure everybody gets home.
Right. There's the ADHD again. So again, you can find her all over social media. I have zero issue forwarding anybody the book that needs it. And if you need some help, if you're beyond the point of needing to know how to do it safe, anybody that knows me knows where I am. My inbox is open. My telephone number is on my Facebook. Yeah, there's lots of squirrels out here, Adam. That wasn't very nice. They're real shiny.
But she saved me on more than one occasion.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we I think both of us have woken up because of the other one. So we certainly speak from experience that if you're done and you really need the help, like I'm here. You know, there's people that are out there. There are people out there that don't judge. There are people out there that actually want you to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you know me, if you don't know me. My inbox is always open. My Facebook is public, so you can find my telephone number or my email. Jules has an email. What's your email?
You actually can find me at preflightsafety@gmail.com.
Perfect. Wonderful.
And as well as on Facebook as at Preflight Safety. You can message me directly, because honestly, I'd rather you reach out than, well, than reach for the other thing.
Right.
So,
Exactly. The phone's not 800 pounds. That's something I had a sponsor for 5 minutes. Didn't work for me, but I'm still 15 years sober.
yes.
That piece of advice never left me. The telephone is not 800 pounds. If you need it, use it. Somebody will be there. Somebody will pick up, and you just keep calling. Keep calling until somebody does. So on that note, we hope you all board your flights very safe this summer. And we hope that, we get to talk to you all this fall. Yes. Thanks again for this. I greatly appreciate you coming on.
Thank you again. I'm so excited to be a part of Sofa City Sounds, as well as the Hot Sauce Challenge. It was such an amazing experience. I highly recommend you check that out on YouTube once everything gets released. Yes. I know there's going to be many more issues of that, because that was just epic.
Yeah, it's going through CS edits right now. So once they're done editing, we'll put everything up, and we'll do this again at the end of the fall.
That sounds wonderful.
We definitely will. We'll do this again at the end of the fall. Not that I'm putting you on the spot or anything, but hopefully we'll have some more new information out there for you.
I hope so. We wish everybody a very safe but wonderful flying experience this summer.